نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين يا رحمن الراحمين. So last time we did Surah Baqarah, ayah number 97 to 101. We talked about how the people from Bani Israel, they said that we are an enemy to Jibreel alayhi salam, and they were like, okay, if the revelation had come through Mikail alayhi salam, we would have accepted it, but not now. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that whoever is an enemy to any of his angels or messengers is an enemy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And that these verses have been revealed to you, the revelation has been revealed to us with very clear proofs, and it's only the disobedient who deny these proofs. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, told us about the people of some people of Bani Israel. What they did is that every time they took a covenant, they had a pact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they threw it away. Like they did not live up to it. And in fact, most of them did not believe. And when a messenger of Allah came to them confirming that which was with them, a party of them who had been given the scripture threw it behind their backs as if they did not know. So, any thoughts about it that anybody wants to share before we go ahead? Okay, I'll continue then, inshallah. And if everybody wants, they can mute themselves, and when you're speaking, then you can unmute yourself, inshallah. Okay, so today, so last time, as we had learnt about the story of the incident when somebody had come to the Prophet ﷺ saying, somebody from Bani Israel had come saying that we would have accepted it after the question and answer. They said we would accept it, your thing, if it was from somebody other than Jibreel alayhi salam. And then slowly we learned that their hostility, which started from just a hostility towards Jibreel alayhi salam, extended to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messengers, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that he is an enemy to the disbelievers. So what it taught us from last time, which we'll continue this time, is that sometimes what might seem as a minor deviation or a small thing, which we start to go in, and then it starts to grow and become gruesome and horrendous in the end. Sometimes some things that started as, which they thought as something very little or trivial, that okay, it's just Jibreel that we are not like happy with, everything else we are fine with. They thought it was a small deal, but that grew to be and towards the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah himself is the enemy to the disbelievers, and he counted them amongst the disbelievers. So something that anybody who's close to Allah ta'ala, when we the messengers or the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and somebody who has hostility against them, they are going down a dangerous road. And which, so if you think about it as two parallel lines, and the lines are going parallel, and if at a slight deviation, slight angle starts in one of those lines, over a period of time, the distance between the two lines increases and increases and increases, right? Because one is going on an angle, and previously it was straight. So what we learned was to the effect that even the minor deviations or minor changes or something can get very dangerous for us, and then we have to watch out for them. And when they said that last time we learned that they said they threw the book of Allah behind their backs. So when they threw the book of Allah behind their backs, as in when they did not put the book of Allah as a priority in their lives, then when you don't put something as priority which was supposed to be, then something else takes its place. So in today's ayah, we will learn that what took its place for some of those people, and some of our previous they were the believers of their time, they were the Muslims of that time. So what are the deviations that they fell into when they did not hold on tight to their covenants and their scripture, so that obviously we can protect ourselves. So we'll do these two ayahs. It's ayah number 102 and 103. Ayah 102 is a big ayah. So, and there are some like brackets and parentheses and a quote, like something that somebody said in between. So we'll go over it word by word, but then while explaining, I'll go over it in a little more detail. So inshallah, we'll have to focus a little bit more to see that we don't get lost in it. I'll play the ayah first. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان وما كفر سليمان ولكن الشياطين كفروا يعلمون الناس السحر وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت وما يعلمان من أحد حتى يقولا إنما نحن فتنة فلا تكفر فيتعلمون منهما ما يفرقون به بين المرء وزوجه وما هم بضارين به من أحد إلا بإذن الله ويتعلمون ما يضرهم ولا ينفعهم ولقد علموا لمن اشتراه ما له في الآخرة من خلاق ولبئس ما شروا به أنفسهم لو كانوا يعلمون.
So, wattaba'u, ittaba, we know that taba is to follow someone, like we say that we follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we follow his footsteps, right? So, taba'a refers to following something. So, wa here is and, ittaba'u, they followed. Okay, so wattaba'u, and they followed ma, what? So, who is it talking about? Who followed? The people of Bani Israel who put, like in the previous ayah we learned about the people who threw the scripture behind their back. A party of those who threw the scripture behind their backs, and they were not, as if they did not know. So they knew it, and yet they did not follow it. But if they knew about the book of Allah, they were learning the book of Allah, and yet they were not following it. They ended up following something else. So what were they following instead? So they followed ma, what, tatlu, recited. So we say tilawat, right? We say tilawat of Quran. So tatlu refers to reciting something, or saying something, reciting something, like that, right? So what taba'u ma tatlu, what recited, who recited? Ash-shayateen. Ash-shayateen is the plural of shaitan, so the devils. Ash-shayateen refers to the devils in jinns, as well as there could be devils in the mankind, in humankind as well. So it could be referred to anything. So the amongst the human people, those people are called shayateen, who follow the ways of the shayateen so much that they actually resemble their behavior, for all practical purposes, resembles that of shayateen in a sense. So what these people followed was, they followed what the shayateen recited, and ala mulki Sulaiman, ala over, mulki the kingdom, mulk is a kingdom, like we say malikul mulk, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the malik, is the owner of all kingdoms. He is ala mulki Sulaiman, mulk of whom? Upon the kingdom of Sulaiman. Sulaiman alayhi salam was one of the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they recited, there were shayateen at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam who recited something, and these people followed that which was being recited during the kingdom of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Wama, and not, kafara, disbelieved, Sulaiman alayhi salam, walakinna, and but, like in Hindi and Urdu also we say lakin, so it's a similar word, and but ash-shayatina, the devils, kafaru, is the devils who disbelieved. So here it's like it's almost like this thing is in a little bracket here. So before continuing the sentence, the shayateen was reciting something over the kingdom of Suleiman, but it was not Suleiman who disbelieved, but it was the shayateen who were the disbelievers. And what did they do? Yu'allimuna comes from ilm, like ayn, lam, and meen, knowledge. So, or teaching something. So yu'allimuna, they taught. Who taught? The shayateen. Yu'allimuna nasa, they taught the people, an-nas, the people, as-sihr. Sihr refers to magic. Specifically speaking, we refer to usually black magic here. So they taught the people sihr, black magic, wama, and what unzila, and what was sent down ala upon malakaini, the two angels. So malakaini, there are three numbers in Arabic. Like in English, we would say singular and plural. In Arabic, there are three. We use words in three ways to refer to numbers. It's either a singular or a dual and a plural. So there's a separate word for dual. We don't have that kind of words in English, but we have that in Arabic. We also have that in French, I believe, that we have a word for two of something, right? So ala malakaini, when you have aini at the end, aina or aini, it's usually referring to the two of something. So malak means angel, malaika means plural, like many angels, and malakaini means two angels. So, and what was sent down. So the people were following what the shayateen were saying, were reciting, and the people also were following what was sent down upon the two angels. Where were these two angels? Babil, uh, in Babylon. Babylon is the modern day Iraq, that region. So in Babylon. And what were these two angels? Their names were Harut and were Marut. So Harut and Marut. So the and what was sent down upon the two angels in Babylon, Harut and Marut. Wama, and not yu'allimani, they both teach. Here again, ani at the end also refers to two of something in many words, not all words, but slowly we'll start to when we start with Arabic grammar, we will see that more. So here it refers to both of them, and both of them do not teach min any ahadin anyone. They do not teach anyone hatta unless yaqula, they both say innama, only, nahnu, we, fitnatun, are a trial. So they do not say anything except they say, the two angels, they say, we are nothing except a trial. Fala, so do not takfur, disbelieve. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, but they learn. Ta'allama, so allama means here teaching, and ta'allama means to learn something. Right? So there's an extra ta at the beginning. Ta refers to learning. Allama means to teach. So فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, fa is so or but here is more appropriate. يَتَعَلَّمُونَ, they learn, minhuma, from those two, ma, what, yufarriquna. Farq is to separate something, right? So the Quran is called a Furqan because Quran separates between the truth and the falsehood. The Quran separates between right and the wrong. So it's a Furqan. And Faraq is also, we learnt about when the sea was parted, so it was a Farq was put, right? So to cause a separation between something. So they do not, but they learn from these two what yufarriquna, causes a separation, bihi, with it, baina, in between, al mar'i wa zawjihi, al mar'i, a man, wa zawjihi, and his spouse and his wife. So they learn this kind of, they'll do with it. What are they doing with this? Whatever they're learning, these people, what they're doing with it, they're causing a separation between a man and his wife. Wama, and not whom they could bidarrina, at all harm. Darar is to cause harm to someone. So they could not harm at all, bidarrina, harm at all, bihi, with it, min ahadin, anyone, illa, except, biidnillah, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ, and they learn, and these people they learn, ma yadurruhum, what harms them. Darar again is harm. What harms them, wala, and not, yanfa'uhum. Nafa is a profit, right? So and wala yanfa'uhum, and it does not profit them. So whatever they're doing, whatever they're learning to cause separation between people, or whatever they're doing to harm somebody else, it is actually, they are not themselves getting any profit out of it. In fact, it is harming them. Walaqad, and indeed, alimu, they knew. So again from ilm, ain, lam, and mim, and indeed they knew. Certainly, there is no doubt about it. They knew, laman, that whoever, ishtarahu, buys it, ma. So ishtara, we learned that before, buying, selling, for transactions and everything it is used. So that whoever buys it, ma, not lahu, for him, fil akhirati, in the hereafter, min khalaq, is any share. So they knew that whoever does this, whoever buys this kind of, whoever does this kind of a transaction, that instead of following the book of Allah, they are following the book of Allah. For them at that time was the Torah. So instead of following the book of Allah, which was pure at that time, they were starting to follow what the shayateen are reciting and what the two angels, what was brought down by these two angels, and they were using it to cause separation between couples, between man and his wife. And by doing so, they were harming, not harming anyone. Like anything that happened was only by the permission of Allah, first of all, and they were harming themselves. And with this, they knew that by doing it, they were, for them will not be any share in the hereafter, min khalaq, any share at all. Wala bi'sa, and surely, wa is and, la here, lam here is for taqid, like for emphasis, surely, bi'sa, bi'sa is evil, or something bad or evil, ma is what, sharaw, they sold, bihi, with it, anfusahum. So it is bad for which they sold, or with which they sold their own selves, because they literally sold themselves to this kind of practices. Law kanu, if they were, ya'lamun, to know. So basically, this ayah is saying, and they followed instead what the devils had recited during the reign of Sulaiman alayhi salam. It was not Sulaiman who disbelieved, but the devils who disbelieved, teaching people magic and that which was revealed to the two angels at Babylon, Harut and Marut. But the two angels do not teach anyone unless they say we are a trial. So do not disbelieve by practicing magic. And yet they learn from them that which they cause a separation, by which they cause separation between a man and his wife. But they do not harm anyone through it except by the permission of Allah. And the people learn what harms them and does not benefit them. But the children of Israel, they certainly knew that whoever purchased the magic would not have in the hereafter any share. And wretched is that for which they sold themselves, if only they knew. We'll go in a little bit more detail in a minute, inshallah. And ayah number 103.
ولو
Walau, and wa is and, law is if, and if, annahum, that they, whom is for they, anna here is for that, and if it was that they, amanu, had believed, and if it was that they had believed, wattaqaw, and it comes from taqwa, and they had feared Allah, they had developed the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lamathubatun, surely the reward. Thawb is like we say the thawab of something, like we say that you pray and you get the thawab of your prayer, you fast and you get the thawab of your prayer. So it comes from thuba here, right? Tha, wow, and ba. Lamathubatun, surely, lam here is for surely, like for emphasis on something. It's almost like you're underlining something. So lamathubatun, surely the reward, min indillahi, of this from Allah, indallahi, from Allah, khairun, would have been better. Khair, something good, something better. If they had believed, instead of doing all of this, if they had believed and they had developed the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reward that they would have got from Allah would have been much, much, much better. Law kanu, if, law is if, kanu, they were, to be, for a lot of people to be. So they were, if they were, ya'lamun, to know. So, and if they had believed and feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the reward from Allah would have been far better, if only they knew. Okay. So we will go in a little bit more detail about from ayah number 102 and 103. So in this ayah, first of all, when these people threw away, when the book went away from their lives, when the importance of the book, so they were still reading the book. It's not that they were not reading the book. They were still regarding the Torah as an important part and as an important part of their religious religious like reverence, and they would still put it at a high place in that sense, but they were not following it in anymore. They were not trying to learn what it says. They were not, it did not have that central position in their life. They would not follow the laws of the Torah so much, right? So when the laws of the Torah, when the Torah would tell them, do something, that you have to do something this way, or you have to give the rights of this person or that person in your life, or whatever, whether it was inheritance or whether it was taking care of their kith and kin, or whether it was giving rights in a marriage, or giving rights to the poor and the needy, or whatever. They did not want to do that, and they were not following those laws, and they would find little loopholes and try to like get away with anything. No, no, we can get away. We don't need to do this. We don't need to do that. Or because of religious corruption and everything. When the book of Allah goes away, then something else takes its place, and usually it is something which is not very pleasant, something which is not very good, right? So if you we don't so for example, if somebody doesn't read Quran, they will read fiction, they will read novels, they'll read things, and some of them might be entertaining, but they're doing something to the mind. Whatever we read, whatever we watch does something to our mind. It gives us it impacts us in different ways, whether it's little or more, right? So what they had done was they had put Torah behind their back, and they had started reading what Shayateen read at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Sulaiman alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was the son of Dawood alayhi salam. And at the time of Dawood alayhi salam, they had Bani Israel had got the region of Palestine back. There was after being expelled from it for some time, and then they had got the region back under their control. And Dawood alayhi salam's time was the time when they flourished a lot. Like they had, because he's also referred to as King David. Other than Moses, King David is referred to as by Bani Israel as their most glorious period of their time, because they had so much prosperity, they had so much wealth and prosperity and everything going on. Everything was going on for them, literally. So they had started obviously as when they started following their prophet and they came back and everything, then they got a lot of prosperity and everything. But slowly, corruption again developed in them, and as corruption developed again, like we see during the history of Bani Israel, there are ups. It's like in terms of their piety, they go back and then they dip again, and they go back and they dip again. So they get a chance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives them a chance, and then they dip again. They follow their same pattern, that only they say something or do something just to get away from punishment, but as soon as it goes, go back to their some kind of other deviation, right? So here we are learning about another deviation that happened. So at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, what a lot of people were doing was they had magic had become a very prominent uh, thing that was practiced by a lot of people at that time, and they were going into magic so much that they were even in fact some people were regarding the people who used to do magic as like holy people, or they're like very prominent people, or they can do things that other people cannot do, so they would regard them as some like there's somebody that we should obey them and everything. So these people were starting to get a lot of following. So even if you look at today's world, anybody who does like some miracles, even in like if we go to places where there's not much education, there's not much literacy, and a person uh, who is claiming to be pious, and he does some kind of he uses some chemicals or something and mixes something and makes people see something that they don't know the cause of, then they are like, wow, this person is so like this person is magical, he has some magical powers, or he is like, and they start to follow that. It's very easy to fool people who are away from the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when people are away from those teachings, they fall for these things. They fall for anybody doing tricks and things and deceiving them in whatever name. So they end up following them, and that's what was happening there. There were some evil people who were engaging in practices which were related to magic, and which were inspired by shayateen, not inspired by something good or holy, but actually inspired by shayateen. And these practices were becoming very, 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 very common, right? And what happened was that a rumor, because Sulaiman alayhi salam was given a lot of power by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn later in the Quran at different prophets were given different miracles and different things at different times, and a lot of times miracles were given depending on what was going on at that time, right? So, for example, at and we talked about this one time before, that Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus, when he came, healing or medicine was a very big thing at that time. So the miracle that he had was he had a healing touch. Like he would touch a person who was a leper from birth, or a person who was blind from birth, and he would cure that person, and people would get cured by them. So he had, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with those miracles. So people could clearly recognize, people were so skilled in medicine at that time. Medicine was such a prevalent and such a big field at that time, that they could see that this is not medicine. This is not something that any doctor can do. This is not something that anything else can do. This is truly a miracle. They could recognize that. Similarly, at the time of Musa alayhi salam as well, there was some magic which was prevalent, and we learn in the Quran that his staff, there were magicians who came to compete with Musa alayhi salam in the court of Pharaoh, who were at the side of the Pharaoh, and they threw they dropped their sticks on the ground. They had those sticks of the magician sticks, and they did some trickery of the eye, so that to people it seemed like they're snakes, and they're like snakes, and the sticks are moving. So they would trick people like that, and people thought it was magic, and people were getting tricked by it. And then when Musa al Islam dropped his staff, what was the miracle was it became a giant snake, and it ate up all the sticks. And the magicians at that time, they knew that this cannot be true, because they knew the art of deceiving people's eyes and everything, and they knew only thing they can do is make the stick move a little bit and seem like a snake, but not actually become a snake. So when they saw that Musa alayhi salam's staff had become a big snake, and it actually ate up all the other sticks and everything, they recognized right away. They fell into sajda right away. They came and they became believers. They said, "We believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun alayhi salam. We believe in their Lord." And they came in the morning to the court of Pharaoh as disbelievers, but by the afternoon, by the evening, they were believers, and so strong believers that the Pharaoh got annoyed with them and said that you came to compete on, like you were my subjects, and you came to compete with Musa and to prove that he's an impostor or he's doing magic. And but you, how dare you believe in his Lord? Because Pharaoh had declared that I'm the Lord, right? And so he declared that, and then those people were. It is so beautiful that those people were. It is sad and beautiful at the same time, because Pharaoh punished them and said, if you don't disbelieve, then in Musa's Lord, then I will get you killed. I will get you killed and give you the the death penalty, or and everything, and you will be killed and shown. You'll be made an example of. And they said they believed, and their belief was so strong right after believing, that they said, we don't care. Whatever is with our Lord is much better than what is with you. And they were martyred the same day. So those same people who came as disbelievers in the morning became believers by the and not just believers, but they became martyrs in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the end of the day. And which is the power of a miracle, when a miracle happens. And the power of miracle, and when Allah chooses someone to give them faith, he chooses someone to give them faith, right? We cannot that's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam was also given a lot of miracles, and one of many of his miracles, some of them were that he could speak to the other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like he could speak to animals, he could speak to the birds, he could listen to what the ants are speaking. Even we learn later on in the Quran, there's an incident where ants are speaking to each other, and he heard them. And the ants were basically saying that one ant was saying to all the other ants, go away, the army of Suleiman are coming, and they'll crush you, and go away and hide in your homes and everything. And Suleiman alayhi salam heard that, and he smiled, and he turned his army back to so that the homes of the ants would not be destroyed. And he had a lot of resources to his, so these animals and birds and everything would listen to him and obey his commands. And another thing was, Sulaiman alayhi salam had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the power that the jinns were subdued to him, and they had to listen to his orders as well. So which may, obviously jinns have abilities which are different from human beings, right? So two other people who were watching these things being done, it seemed like, okay, this is so different. Wow, this is what's happening, right? So these things were being done. And because people were so much into magic, some people started referring to this as like at Sulaiman alayhi salam as a magician rather than a prophet. And when Quran came, there was even at that time, some people from Bani Israel would call him a magician or something. So even today, like a lot of magic that is done or a lot of things that are done, people call it like people refer to Sulaiman alayhi salam's name is referred to a lot in these things. And usually a lot of people refer to him, if we look at the Jewish and Christian traditions, they would refer to him as King Solomon. They wouldn't at times refer to him as the Prophet Solomon. But the thing is, subhanallah, even years and years have passed away, like thousands of years have passed away when the Quran's coming down. Sulaiman alayhi salam lived much before in Palestine at the time, in that region, Palestine, Iraq, and all that region. And the people had made something about him. He was a prophet of Allah, and people had made a rumor about him, and people were still saying something wrong about him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the Quran, defends his prophets and says, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ شَيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. So it's like before continuing that sentence, saying that okay, these people were following what was recited upon which the devils recited during the kingdom or upon the kingdom of Suleiman. But by the way, so here if you think of it, it's like a bracket. By the way, when you mention Suleiman, just remember, like when you're talking about my prophet, when you're talking about the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or whether it's Isa alayhi salam, whether it's Musa alayhi salam, whether it is Yaqub alayhi salam, whether it is Ibrahim alayhi salam, whether it's Adam alayhi salam, whenever you're mentioning any prophet or any angel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you better watch what you're saying, right? So it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَمَا كَفَرَ Sulaiman, remember, and be careful when you mention Sulaiman, just be careful what you say, because magic in Islamic terminology is not something which is recommended. It's something which is a big sin. It is one of the big sins, and it is also leads to kufr, right? So which leads to disbelief, which leads to somebody getting out of the fold of Islam if they're practicing magic and black magic and those sort of things. So when somebody is calling Sulaiman alayhi salam as somebody who practiced these things, it is very offensive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like anybody saying anything against Jibreel alayhi salam was not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, anybody saying anything against any prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all. And he says, remember. So it's like uh, before continuing the sentence, before continuing on what the shayateen were reciting and what the other things that these people were learning or doing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrects the record for Sulaiman alayhi salam, and he does not even like the slightest association of evil with Sulaiman alayhi salam, and he says that Sulaiman did not disbelieve. In fact, it was the devils. Yes, at that time there were devils and angels who disbelieved, and there were people who were following these who disbelieved. So it was not Sulaiman. So just remember that. And then, what had happened at that time was at Sulaiman al-Islam's time, a lot of people, when they were practicing magic and doing these things, and they had those things written down, and they were reciting things and doing things and stuff. Sulaiman al-Islam got to know, and he got all the books collected, all the things which people were teaching other people of magic, and there were these groups of people or cults who were into these practices. Sulaiman alayhi salam, to stop all of that evil practices that was going on, he got uh, all these books and things to be collected, and then he got them buried under his throne so that he has control over that, and nobody has access to them, and nobody engages in those evil practices again, right? And what happened was um, so, and where did they get all these things from, these devils, where they were learning all these things from? They would overhear words from the heavens, and then they would come to someone with a word of truth. And so they would, for example, they would hear something about the destiny or whatever is going to happen, or whatever is like some commands being given to any angel, or something's being talked about, and they would hear it in the heaven, overhear something, and they would come to someone with a word of truth, some human being, and tell them something which is going to be true, right? One thing. And when the person ended up believing them, Then they would add to it 70 lies. They would add a lot of lies to it after that, and the hearts of people would absorb those lies. Like, okay, so this is a trick of shaitan that has been, and it is always there. It's like he doesn't tell total just lies, because what will happen is that then people can make out these are lies, right? So he mixes some truth with a lot of lies. So there's a little bit of truth, and then when people, no, no, but this is right, this is a fact, this is right, or this happened, or this is truth what they're saying, or whatever, and then there'll be a lot of lies mixed up with that, and people would take up that, right? So when Sulaiman alayhi salam got to know of this, he took them all these written lies, and he buried them under his throne. But when he died, one of the shayateen, he came in the form of people to in a form of a human being to people, and he said to people, shall I not inform you of the treasure of Suleiman, the like of which there is none? And they said yes, and he said it is under the throne. They dug it up, and they said, okay, so this is the magic of Suleiman by which he bewitched the people. And this verse kind of uh, again protects the dignity of Sulaiman alayhi salam, and saying that he did not disbelieve. He was actually protecting the people from these things. And what the shayateen made the people believe was that Sulaiman alayhi salam had all these powers because he was following these books. So he like kind of like flipped everything the other way around. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrects the record, and even when Sulaiman alayhi salam is not there to defend him, even if it's been thousands of years since Sulaiman alayhi salam has passed away, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's going on. And it's the same thing which was being said by the people at that time. The people in Medina, the Bani Israel in Medina, were saying the same thing. They were calling him King Suleiman, King Solomon as well. And even today we find that it is in a lot of traditions they refer to him as King Solomon. So that's what the confusion what was created, that he is Suleiman is following all these books and everything, and that's what they're doing. So what the shayateen used to do, so if we end the bracket here, that shayateen kafaru, um, so what did and basically if we look at the sentence in continuation, so these people who had put the book behind their back, instead of the book they followed what the devils recited over the kingdom of Suleiman, and they teach, which is the shayateen, they teach the people a sihr, they teach the people magic, right? So first things first is like, what is magic? And when we know what is magic, and we need to know how is magic different from a miracle, because here what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is what Sulaiman alayhi salam did, whatever powers he had were a miracle. They were different from magic, and they were not magic, and magic was something which was done by the shayateen, and the shayateen were teaching magic. And sihr is something the effect or the cause of which is not apparent, right? So in it could be something that possesses a luminous quality, like it could be something that some certain phrases which are being said again and again and again, and certain phrases or certain things are being done and again and again and again to get certain kind of an effect. So some phrases have that kind of a quality, but they are being used for that kind of a purpose. And if you think about it, so for example, if somebody hits another person with a rod or a stick or something, then they would get hurt, right? So it's like that. The words in Islam, words have a very powerful quality too, and words have an effect on things too. So when, for example, somebody is saying words again and again and again for a certain impact, then there is an impact of it. Like they say today, they say that speak positive words, like don't speak negativity, otherwise don't speak negative words, or don't indulge in a lot of negative thoughts, otherwise it starts to put your mood down and it attracts negativity in your life. And a lot of psychologists say that think positive, be positive, like that's the mantra that they use, that if you think of positive things, then um, not only will you feel good, but you'll also attract goodness towards yourself, because you're in that frame of mind, you're in that zone. It has an impact, the kind of words you use, the kind of things you use. Like for example, in parenting workshops, they say that don't tell a child that don't leave the room dirty. They tell the child instead, say leave the room clean when you're done, because words have an image, words have an thing. So in when you're saying don't leave the room dirty, the image that is going in the mind is a dirty room, although there is a no attached to it, but the image that is coming up is still a dirty room. And when you're saying instead of this phrase, when you're using, it is the same command but different phrase, you're saying leave the room clean, then the words are different, and the words have an impact because the child is visualizing a clear image. So words have an impact. There's a luminous quality to certain words and phrases. So in sihr, sometimes, like, there are different ways in which sihr is done, magic is done. So one of them is certain words are used by these people or these shayateen. Another thing is in things which are done with an extrasensory reality. So any effect which is produced by the jinns or the devils is from something that we cannot see the cause of it, because they are obviously, jinns and devils are a part of the ghaib. We cannot see them, but when help is sought through them, and the work is done through them, and the jinns or the devils are doing the work, then to people it would appear like magic, which in Islamic terminology, that's what it's usually used to refer to. That sihr refers to any happenings which have been brought about with the active help of devils, and to get that help of devils, people win them over with certain practices to please them. And we can imagine what kind of practices would please shayateen. What is the big goal of shayateen in this world? The goal of shayateen is to make people, make humankind, make anas, make people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So any practice that would either lead to shirk, which would either lead to having a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or calling upon anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or any practice that would go against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like instead of doing ghusl and wudu and keeping yourselves clean and everything, that person would just stop having a shower and just stop being clean altogether, and they would love to, they would start staying in filthy environments and filthy things and doing all kinds of sins and those things which are against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing things which Allah ta'ala has not allowed, has clearly prohibited, just for what? To please the devils, right? And even today we know that the people who are into this kind of who are engaging in right now, today we are living in a world that people even admit it openly, that they are into black magic and things, and they consider it as a very, that they're doing something great, and they openly admit that. But when we look at these people's lifestyles, it is full of filth, it is full of dirty things, and it is full of things which are leaning towards the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that is another kind of sihr. One kind of sihr is using the power of imagination, right? So for example, the effects of hypnotism, and making people like the magicians in the court of Pharaoh, and at the time of Musa alayhi salam, where they made the sticks appear like, so they didn't actually change their form, but it was their trick of the eye, and they made people imagine as if they were snakes. So that is the power of imagination and hypnotism. Another kind of sihr which is done is sensory yet hidden. So something like a magnet is used to draw the piece of iron to itself, but the magnet itself would be hidden, and then they would do that. Or we know, like in many, sorry, in many rural areas, or people where there's lot of education or something, people don't know about chemicals and everything. What they would do is they would say that, okay, this is water, and I'm going to mix this water with, they would pour water over another water, and the fire would come or something would come. But in fact, they are not using water, they're using two chemicals which lead to combustion when they combine with each other. But because the other people don't know the fact of science, or are hidden from them, they present it as magic, and people are easily fooled out of it, right? So that's sihr as well. But obviously in Islamic terminology, we usually refer to sihr as the one which is done with the help of devils, to please the devils and to get things done through them. So here, this is what it is referring to, that these people would, the shayateen would teach these people sihr, right? And another thing, because Allah Ta'ala has mentioned here that Suleiman, there is a very clear distinction between what Suleiman alayhi salam did, which was also seemed unnatural to people who are watching it, unusual kind of events, unusual kind of things. And in English language, actually, today, it is, we usually call unusual events and things as, sometimes we call it, oh, this is a miracle, this is a miracle child, like this child had so many complications when the child was born, but then he survived, so it's a miracle child. Or this thing happened, and we say, oh wow, this is magical. So usually nowadays, like in a general sense, the word miracle and magic is used in a very general, like something which is wow, something that's amazing. We just use these words in the English language today like that. But in Islamic and Arabic terminology, they're very, very different words. Right? So sihr, like we said, is magic, and it has a negative connotation to it. It is very, very negative. The miracle is called in Islam, in Arabic terminology is called mu'jiza, right? So mu'jiza. So a miracle is performed by it is done by God. It is by the direct will of God, which is either done directly by God or through a prophet. It is a miracle cannot be performed by anyone, any other human being. It is only performed by the prophets. Why? To prove, because whenever a prophet came with the to teach people the will of God, and the prophets were in contact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, and they would teach people, then people would like demand something. Okay, how do we know that you're a prophet of God? How do we know that uh, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to you, or there's something. So what happened was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let certain miracles happen at the time with different prophets, different kind of miracles happened, but these miracles were to prove that these prophets are in fact the prophets of God. So the miracles were happened at the hand of the prophets. For example, the sea parting, right? That was Musa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa alayhi salam to stick his to tap or to hit his staff at the sea, and the sea parted, right? Although Musa alayhi salam hit the staff, but the the act of parting the sea was done directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was totally against the laws of nature. Something a miracle is something that totally breaks the laws of nature. There is no cause for it, right? Like the sea breaking, sea parting, and something against the laws of gravity. Something like Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was thrown into the fire, and the fire became cool for him. Right? The nature of the fire is to burn, and but the fire became cool for him. As opposed to that, if you look at sihr, what sihr does is there is certain cause. So for example, if you see somebody doing a trick of going into the fire or something, they would rub some chemicals on their body, or they wear a certain kind of suit, or they'll rub some chemicals so that the fire does not burn their skin, or does not cause certain degree of burns or something, and then they can do all these tricks with the fire and everything. So there's a cause, although that cause might or might not be hidden, right? So when we are thinking of sihr, there's still a cause, although that cause is not known to us. This cause might be hidden, which is why that thing seems unusual to us. But when we look at miracle, on the other hand, a miracle is something that is, first of all, done by, it cannot be done by any human being. Even the prophets could not call for a miracle. The prophets had, it was Allah's will when any miracle would happen and how it would happen. They could pray to Allah for it, but they could not make a miracle happen at will. It was directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the hands of prophets, but by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What God can do, man cannot do, right? And mu'ajiza, the root words of mu'ajiza or a miracle is ain, jim, and za, which means to be weak or incapable. So basically, a mu'ajiza or a miracle is something which a man, any human being, is weak or totally incapable of doing. It is only God who could do it. No human being could ever do it, right? Like for example, Isa alayhi salam was born to a virgin mother. We know that for a child to be born, for all other human beings after Adam and Eve to be born, were through a husband and a wife, a father and a mother. But the only one miracle was the birth of Isa alayhi salam, and his mother Maryam alayhi salam was never married. She was a virgin and she gave birth, which was a miracle, which was only God could have done, right? And another thing about a miracle, which is different from magic, which helps us to learn that, is that a magic, something which is magic, can be repeated or duplicated. It can be learnt and it can be duplicated. So, for example, card tricks, like very simple example is card tricks that people do, and they show it off as like a very small form of magic. Those card tricks can be learned, like somebody's really good at them, but actually somebody else can learn it. There is a possibility another person can learn the same trick and do the same trick again. And that goes for all other kind of magic tricks and as well, and all kinds of sihr as well. Whatever kind of sihr is done by either by the help of the devils or by deceiving people or something, it can be done by another person at another time, whether it is now or hundreds of years before or hundreds of years after, or in the same time frame or different people. But it can be repeated. Basically, it can be duplicated. But something which is a miracle totally defies the patterns of history. It never happened before, and it will never happen again. It was a one time thing, right? So the sea parting happened one time, it is never going to happen again. And it would literally be just then that it happened, right? And so it's important to know the difference between the two. Whatever Sulaiman alayhi salam could do, the powers that or the abilities that were given to him were miracle in nature. They were some things that were special powers or special abilities given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the things that he was doing by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prove his prophethood and to guide his people. The purpose of all these miracles was not just to say, okay, wow, he did that, wow, amazing, and like everybody applauses and like everything. The purpose of magic is usually that, or to create some kind of a disturbance in other people's lives. But the purpose of a miracle is, a prophet brings the miracle, and it is to guide people, to help people understand that he's a prophet, so that he can guide people towards the will of God. Right? And even today, sometimes the people of Allah, the people who are close to Allah, Allah Ta'ala will show them certain kind of things. They're not mu'ajiza, they're not miracles, but they're unusual acts. And sometimes a lot of people witness that unusual acts in their life. People, as people are growing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would like, for example, see a dream, and that would come true, or some other things would happen. Different people go through different incidents or something, and they're like, wow, this was from Allah, right? And those are referred to as karamat, right? So these are the happens with the people who are getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is, and it was a big topic, but it is important to understand the difference between the two. So what was happening in Babylon in this time? So first of all, the shayateen were teaching the people magic. Wama unzila ala malakaini bibabil Harut wa Marut. And there were two angels who came to people at that time, who were sent to Allah, to people by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they they were sent down with something that people started to go after that, right? So there are two opinions here. Some say that some of the scholars have interpreted it as that these angels, Harut and Marut, also had some kind of knowledge or some kind of magic which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent them with, which they were teaching people. And while teaching people, they would, before teaching anyone anything, they had that knowledge, but they would say before teaching anyone that we are a test for you, that we are a trial. We have been sent as a test for you and a trial for you, right? So do not use whatever you're learning for anything bad. And like, for example, some people say that because there was so much black magic going on, there were some things which were sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to, for people to learn, to be able to stop any harm coming to them from black magic or things like that. And these angels would come and teach that, and then say, but don't use whatever good things we are teaching you, don't use them in a bad way, right? Don't, because there is this whole community, you don't know who's coming with what intention. So only inside the hearts, as we know, only Allah Ta'ala knows in what is happening inside the hearts. Angels don't know what's going on inside the hearts, the jinns don't know what's going inside the heart, and human beings don't know what is going on exactly in each other's hearts. It's only Allah Ta'ala who knows what is inside the heart of any person, truly what is inside. Yes, we have signs, we see, like, for example, if somebody loves another person, we know that they're behaving in a caring and kind way, and we know they would like either give gifts to that person or take care of their needs, or they're we generally like want to spend time with them. There are signs that we can see, but none of us can look inside, and even the angels could not look inside the hearts of people, who's coming with what intention. And they're giving some good knowledge, but it is a powerful knowledge. And they are saying that, but remember that Allah Ta'ala has, they would warn people first that we have been sent as a test. This knowledge is a test for you. Don't use it in a, don't use it in a wrong way, right? And they were, or, and there are some other scholars who came with you, who are of the opinion that the angel said that we are telling you what all to avoid, but to say, to explain to people what all they have to avoid, they had to explain it, they had to illustrate it, right? That, okay, don't do this, don't do these charm things, don't do these things, don't do these things. So they had to illustrate that, and they would tell people that don't do this, right? And don't engage in these things. And it is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so it's almost like you're going to someone and saying, okay, don't follow this and this and this. These are the three steps you should not take. So I have to explain to you what are these three steps that you shouldn't take. But people Instead, many people who came to them used their words to engage in magic, and it's almost like you're watching a crime show. Like there is a show in which some crime is being shown, and the purpose of that show is, or that episode or that program or that serial is to show certain way of a crime, and then at the end they show the end of that crime is that the crime never pays, and then there is a people get hurt, and how to protect yourself from certain crimes and how to be more careful, that this is the way people are doing crimes. But then there are other people who are watching these crime shows to actually get ideas on how to do crimes, right? So what is being said here is that these angels came with the good intention of trying to warn people. Okay, this might be happening. First of all, you don't engage in it, and you don't think, and this is how you protect yourself. But people with wrong intentions are coming to them, who don't want to hold on to the book. What they're doing is they are um, they are ignoring that warning, but they were being told that's to protect themselves, right? But instead they went against the very thing that they were being told not to do, that, right? In If you look at the word unzila, it comes down in the Quran usually for things which have benefit in them, right? So things like cattle, iron, something. It's never used for something evil, but it is used sometimes for punishment coming down upon the disbelievers. So unzila is either like a good thing, or a good thing coming down, or it is some kind of a punishment coming down, right? So what these angels were, they were a test, they were a fitna, right? They said to people that وَمَا يُعَلِّمُونَ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ, that we are nothing but a trial. So do not disbelieve, do not fall into this trap. So they were calling themselves a fitna. And so what is a fitna? Right? We learned about the fitna before. A fitna is like a test, something that we have access to, which had benefit in them, which we could have benefited from, but there is a potential. It is a test, right? Some things that are created for benefit, but they become a test when either they are misused or they're overindulged in. Like at other places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls that your money and your children are a fitna for you. What does that mean? Does that mean money and children are bad? No, it does not mean that money and children are bad. It means that money and children are a blessing for you, but you need to understand how much to um, how much to indulge in them, and how to utilize them, right? So for example, if somebody has a lot of money, then they could use that money to do a lot of good. They could use that money to do a lot of charity, help a lot of people, do a lot of good deeds, and earn a lot of rewards and everything. But the same money can become a test, that a person can become so attached to earning money that they're spending all their time in just making money, 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 or they are falling into sin because of that money, because now that they have all that money, they have access to so many sins or so many wrongdoings, and they are like constantly being lured towards it. How can children be fitna? Children can be fitna because um, like we could, the love of our children is something which is very noble, which Allah Ta'ala has put in our hearts, and we get rewards for when we are taking care of our own children with the intention of like they are a creation of Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala has put them under my care. I'm taking care of them, and Allah Ta'ala take care of them and me for taking care of them, right? Allah Ta'ala reward them, and I'm trying to make them closer to Allah Ta'ala every day through whatever, little or more. Different people have different situations, but whatever works for different people, we try for our children to be closer to Allah Ta'ala, and we try to do whatever we can for their care and for their this world as well as the next. But for someone to get, supposing somebody gets somebody's not having a child, but they get so obsessed with having a child that their day and night are like just like, okay, I want a child, I want a child, and why am I not getting a child? And they pray to Allah Ta'ala for some time. They keep praying for a child. 1 year passes of their marriage, 2 year passes, 3 year passes. Now they're like, okay, I've been praying to Allah for so long, I'm not getting a child. And they go to these people, or these people who call themselves like saints or whatever, and we all know it happens a lot in the South Asian region, that you would go to this like person who calls himself a saint. Okay, like okay, you send your wife to this place for so many months, or help her serve this kind of a thing, and she will get pregnant and she will get a child, or whatever will happen. And people fall for those kind of things, right? And people kind of believe that yes, it's like something. Or somebody starts indulging in things like, okay, some things like black magic or this and that to get children, because they just want a child, 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 child. They're not relying. So that over over love for something, that over need for something, whether it's money or children or anything, takes over a person, and they the desire which was supposed to be a good thing, like for example, if a person's not having a child, they could have said, okay, fine, I'm not having a child. Allah Ta'ala chose for me not to have my own child. Okay, it's not happening. When it happens, it happens. But in the meantime, while I'm praying for it, while I'm doing all my medical due diligence of like whatever, if I'm weak on something or my husband's weak on something, we do our medical treatments and everything, and we keep praying to Allah Ta'ala and everything. Other than that, at the in that period of time, while Allah Ta'ala blesses me, let me go and help some orphans. Let me help and take care of other children. My love for children is not dependent on just me having my own children. I could express that love in different ways and do different things, right? So that love that Allah Ta'ala has put inside us of money and of children can be a good thing, can be utilized in a good way, and it could also be utilized it could also become a fitna for us. It could become a trial for us when it is misused or overindulged in, right? So what these people did, what they were, the angels, Harut and Marut, were telling, one opinion is they were telling them something good, they were teaching them something good, but it was powerful, and they were teaching them something, saying it, they were sent as a test, and they were saying that, you know what, be careful of what you're doing, be careful of what you're learning, and do not disbelieve, do not utilize. This is a fitna for you, this is a test for you. So make sure you have your intentions in the right place. Do right, do good things, and utilize the things. So it's like, you know, um, what these people did was they were learning from these two, and they would use it to cause separation between a husband and wife. So it was almost like somebody, in Bani Israel at that time, it was considered like a matter of big pride if somebody else's wife falls for you, sort of a thing. It's like this woman belonged to this man, but like she left her husband, or she either she cheats on her husband and she starts liking me, or she just ditches her husband, leaves her husband, and comes to me instead. So it was like a big pride thing for a man to kind of say that, like I'm doing that, right? So they would, or for a woman to be like, okay, I fancy this man, he's married to this one, so I want them to kind of like break up or whatever, and then I to do that. So they would utilize things to create friction between husband and wife, and they would do that to create a fitna, and they would utilize the good teachings, they would utilize the good things to create something evil, create something bad, and create something friction, right? All magic is considered bad. All magic is considered bad in our religion, but especially anything that is used to create a friction between a husband and wife is looked down upon a lot. Because what happens when a relationship between a husband and a wife breaks, right? And we learn from other hadith that shayateen, it is the most beloved thing to shayateen is to create separation between husband and wife. Why? Because uh, a broken home would have an effect on the future generations as well, right? It won't just have an impact on the two people, it will have impact on the children, it will have impact on the other things. And other than that, a man-wife relationship is the foundation of all human civilization. So wrecking it is like trying to destroy civilization. Like today, we hear so much about like new day. People are not like nowadays. People don't want to get married, but they want to just have a live-in relationship or something for a long time. And then as soon they would be going, they would be living together for 9 years, 10 years, and they would get married. And then 1 year after their marriage, they're divorcing because what? Until they were in a relationship which Shayateen was happy with, like they're not married, they're just living in or something. So it is like Shaitan has no problem with it, right? Because you're sinning day and night. You're sinning day and night. The Shaitan's like, okay, I want this guy's autograph, right? Like so this they are like doing whatever I want them to do. They're going away from Allah Ta'ala, they're sinning day and night. So Shaitan doesn't mess up with their relationship. But when it's a husband and wife, that's a relationship that Allah Ta'ala approves of. That's a relationship which is halal. That's a relationship which then shayateen try to create a friction between, because this is a relationship which earns us rewards, right? When two believing people they marry each other, then anything that they do for each other, they say that a lot of scholars they say that marriage is nothing but sadaqah, right? Marriage is like sadaqah because every day, every moment, sometimes you're putting your ego down, sometimes you're putting your you want something, but the other person wants something. So many times you're sacrificing something. So many times you're angry at the other person, but you kind of like let go of that anger so many times, right? So you're always you're always having to work on your patience, you're always having to work on your sacrifice. And sometimes you might see the results, some people might see appreciation for another person, some people might not see it, right? And what happens with sadaqah, for example, when we give charity to someone, we, that person, if there is a beggar on the street and I give them $10, the beggar's not going to give me back $10. Allah Ta'ala will bless me in other ways, right? And sometimes that charity, I might not get even the reward in this world, I might get in the hereafter. So it might happen with the marriage. When we invest in our marriages, we might get the result now, and we also might get the result of all the patience and caring for another person that we do. We might get the result in the hereafter. But obviously shayateen does not want, do not want us to get any rewards either here or in the hereafter, especially not in the hereafter. So their biggest thing is to create a separation between man and wife, and they would do waswasa, they would encourage people to do those kind of things. There's a hadith to the effect of that, like every day shaitan holds like a conference, like a big, I'm paraphrasing obviously, holds like a big conference of all his devils, and they would come and present, you know what, today I made someone steal. And he's like, yeah, okay, you did something, yeah, okay, whatever. um Sorry, Sister Misbah, I am speaking. Can anybody else hear me? Sister Misbah said that she can't hear me.
I can hear you, Nidhi.
Okay.
Bindu.
Okay, thank you. Sister Mista, yeah, you might be having some net issues. If you want to just get out and reconnect, sometime it works like that. Otherwise, you can catch up during the recording, inshallah. So, what shayateen do is they like, so this conference that the shaitan holds, and somebody comes and says, okay, I made somebody, I made somebody steal today, and they were thinking they liked something, and I kept poking at them, okay, this is so nice, you can't afford it, but take it, just take it, just take it, just take it. Come on, it'll be good. Come on, come on, come on, you'll enjoy it. This, that. And they ended up stealing, like I put so much effort in it. Shaitan would be like, yeah, okay, whatever. And they said, okay, you know what, today I made someone, do something else, like look at something somebody they were not supposed to look at, or look at some indecent things and whatever. And Shaitan will be like, yeah, okay, you're getting there, but nah, not so impressive. Then somebody comes and says that, you know what, today I caused an argument between a husband and a wife. Today I caused husband and wife to be upset with each other, and they started their day nicely and they were both happy with each other, and I just created like thoughts in both of them, like, and then I just irritated them, like whatever he was doing, I would just tell her, like, this is so irritating, this is so fucking, go, 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 this is so nice, he doesn't care about you, he's like this, he's always about himself, this, that. And I kept saying that to the husband, and about that. And finally they had an argument, and there was a friction between them, and like it was not a peaceful, they and shaitan goes to this person and hugs that devil and says, now this one has done something worthwhile. So all you devils, all you people, all you shayateen, you should learn from this one. This is a big deal. Do these big acts. So the big acts of shayateen, the biggest act that shayateen loves is to create, obviously after shirk, is to create a separation between a husband and a wife. So, and these people of Bani Israel who were learning from the shayateen, what the sihr, they were learning that, and they were learning the things that the angels Harut and Marut had got, but they they had known, the angels told them that this is fitna, the angels told them that this is fitna, and they knew from their books that sihr takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is something that ruins your akhirah. They knew that, and yet they engaged in it, yet they used it to create separation between husband and wife for their own ego, for either this one likes another person's husband or this one likes another person's wife, and they would create that separation between people, or just for the fun of it, just because I don't like this person's or whatever, or these people seem so happy today, and or like a lot of times the reason of black magic and thing is excessive jealousy from somebody, even if they don't want the other person, like supposing there's a man, or there's a woman who does not who she doesn't actually want to get married to this other woman's husband, but she sees these pictures of these two together, or she sees these two always happy together, and it's like burns her. It's like, i I don't want this man either, but I just don't want them to be happy, right? And that kind of excessive jealousy, it manifests itself in these things too, in black magic. A lot of time black magic and things, people who engage in these things are either to harm someone, like, or, and even if you look at these advertisements nowadays of these things, like control the person, and you get the person of your whom you love in 24 hours, that person will come to you and everything. Like, it should really alarm us. Like, um, anything that happens is by the will of Allah Ta'ala, right? So even these people who are engaging in all these things, Allah Ta'ala is allowing it because it's a test. It's a test for everybody involved, how they're going to behave. Are they going to turn back to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, or are they going to leave the book of Allah Ta'ala, or are they going to see instant results, which will, if somebody sees very instant results, would they kind of move towards anything which is haram, which something Allah Ta'ala has told not to do? Would they go towards that, right? So a lot of times this black magic is done to harm people just because of a lot of jealousy, and sometimes it's done for a lot of worldly gains. I want this. I want this property. I want this much money. I want this boy or this girl. I want this thing. I want this thing. I want this thing. It's either for wants or it's to harm someone. I don't care what I get or don't get. I just don't want her or him to be happy. Right? So there's a lot of jealousy, and jealousy is a real thing. Allah Ta'ala told us to protect ourselves from jealousy, to protect ourselves from evil eye. Evil eye is a very real thing in our religion, and that's why we recite Surah Falak and Surah Nas to protect ourselves from evil eye and magic, right? And it is also told that don't advertise your happiness so much. And it is so ironical that it's so ironic that in today's day and age, social media is full of, like, everybody posting their pictures of their food, their own makeup, their relationships, and everything. But in our religion, we are told don't advertise your happiness too much, because you don't know who's looking at it with what intention, right? So for example, um, if you are very happy and you're having a very good day with your husband, and you're advertising, or you're putting it like, oh, I'm having such a good day, or my husband treated me to this and this and this, you don't know the other person might going through a bad phase in their marriage, and they might not mean bad for you, but it might trigger some negative kind of a thing, and you don't want. Just protect your happiness. Like, anything good you have, yes, it's good to share with your friends and something. That's not what is meant here. It's meant like, don't show off to the world your happiness or your accomplishments or something, because protect them and protect yourself from evil eye, right? And so what we learn is magic does happen, and we are told to protect ourselves from magic, right? And there are people, what they do is, instead of holding on to the book, they buy with it. They leave that book, and instead they sell themselves to and buy these things. In fact, they're doing a transaction, right? They could have got their akhirah, but instead of their akhirah, and instead of something, um, for a share in the akhirah, they give it up knowingly. They know from their books it is not allowed. They knew from the angels that this is a fitna, yet they engaged in it. And what they did was surely very, very evil, right? And through different hadith and through different traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, we are told how to protect ourselves. One of the biggest ones, like I said, is to recite Surah Falak and Nas. So should we be afraid always that, okay, somebody would do magic against me, or something will happen, or something will happen to me, and I have to protect? No, in Islam we are told not to be over worried either. Like, trust in Allah. Nothing happens except with the permission of Allah Ta'ala. So we do our adhkar, we pray to Allah Ta'ala, we recite our du'as of protection. There are many du'as of protection in morning and evening adhkars that we have been taught to read, right? And that protects us from the jinns and the shayateen, and that protects us from all kinds of magic and evil eye and all those things. We keep our aqidah strong. We try, in the sense that we believe that whatever happens by the will of Allah Ta'ala. So anything, when everything is in our control, then go to Him, right? Don't get deceived into going to anywhere else or asking anywhere else. So for example, even if we are getting healed, like we go to a doctor or we go take a medicine, we say that, Ya Allah, put shifa for me, put healing for me in this doctor's hands, put healing for me in this medicine, right? So although the medicine is a means by which I'm taking a medicine when I'm having a headache, but I'm saying, Ya Allah, I'm taking this medicine, but there's no guarantee this medicine will work. Ya Allah, put shifa in this medicine for me, because healing will come from you. There are means. Obviously, we utilize all the means. It's not that we ignore the means. This life is a life of means. We utilize them, but we put our faith, our reliance only on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't overthink about these things, that something bad is happening, or somebody might have bad intentions or something. But another thing is, we keep ourselves clean, and hygiene is a big thing, because all these things, sihr and all these things, they work a lot where there is filth, there's dirt, there's uncleanliness, like, and not just physical but spiritual, right? So to please the devils. People do a lot of crazy things. They would disrespect things, and they would disrespect the book of Allah. They would disrespect the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for us, we maintain good relationship, deep relationship with the Quran. We are particular with our wudu, with our ghusl. We recite Surah Baqarah. Surah Baqarah is told that when we recite Surah Baqarah, it expels shayateen from our homes, right? And especially the last few ayahs of Surah Baqarah. And don't be fearful too much. Once we do our du'as, once we do our adhkar, there are other things that the Prophet said, like, for example, eat ajwa dates if you can, if you find them. Black seeds are told to be helpful. Cupping is a treatment which is said to be helpful. Then honey is supposed to have is told that it has cure in it, right? And so there are various ways of shifa in different traditions. Obviously, we can't go over all of them, but there are many du'as and stuff. We can all share them later. Or even if you go over morning adhkars, you'll find a lot of du'as of protection in the Fortress of Muslim and other things, right? So basically, we have to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves. If these people had done that, if these people had not fallen for these things and to get quick returns or to harm other people, what would have been done, right? They would have, what was expected out of them. They were people of the book. They were Muslims of that time, just like we are Muslims of our time. What was expected of them was to believe and to have taqwa of Allah. Then they would have got such a good reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It might be delayed, but it is a good, great reward, right? If they had opened their hearts, these Bani Israel at the time of Medina, if they had opened their hearts to the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran, they would have become Muslims. Their so many followers would have become Muslim, and their coming generations would have become Muslim. They would have got so much reward just for opening their hearts to what they knew to be the truth. Yet they chose to do something against. Even the Bani Israel at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were engaging in the black magic and practices like that, and they would call upon King Solomon and all those things. They would do all those things, and they would call it like, oh no no no, we are allowed to do it. They had made all these deviations in their mind that okay, these are practices which are associated to King Solomon, so we can do it. So it's okay, it's allowed. So they would make anything which was not allowed into allowed, although they knew very well, the religious leadership at least, if not the common people, they knew that this is wrong. And with the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, who's the last prophet, not just for the Muslims of today, he's the prophet for all of mankind. After he came, he's the prophet of all the mankind until the day of judgment, right? So um, they should have opened their hearts to him, and that would have, if they only knew. If they here, knowing here means they knew it, but their knowledge, law kanu ya'lamun, their knowledge was not the knowledge that they were acting upon, right? So the kind of knowledge that with has no pondering and no action about it, no action related to it is as good as ignorance. That's no knowledge at all. You know something, and neither are you acting upon it, nor are you thinking about it, nor you are paying much attention to it. Then what kind of a knowledge is it, right? So law kanu ya'lamun, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I wish they knew. Like it's also shows the love of Allah Ta'ala, that all these people, they're doing so many things, they're going away from Allah Ta'ala, they're falling into these things, but Allah Ta'ala is saying, if only, you are still my people, like, and if somebody has engaged in these things before, if you have done magic before, then don't worry. Remember the people of at the time of Musa alayhi salam, they had done some things which were not things, but then there is a way to turn back. And what is the way to turn back? Amanu wattaqu. Believe and have taqwa. Believe and have taqwa. Taqwa and belief go hand in hand. We believe and we get taqwa. The more our belief increase, the more our taqwa increase. The more our taqwa increase, the more our belief gets stronger. It is like a cycle which goes on and on and on. And as we engage more with the book of Allah Ta'ala, this cycle increases us. And so with that, I would end for today. So just like Allah Ta'ala told them, he tells us as well. And when we come in touch with the Quran, we learn that as well, that when we seek from Allah Ta'ala alone. We don't ask from anyone except Allah Ta'ala. There's no power except Allah Ta'ala. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power, nor there's no change, nor any ability to create any change except with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Um, I pray that Allah Ta'ala accept this coming together for His sake, and that Allah Ta'ala put care and barakah for us in this gathering. May Allah Ta'ala forgive any of the shortcomings. May Allah Ta'ala accept from all of us. Any goodness that comes from this is from Allah Ta'ala alone. Any shortcomings are my own. May Allah Ta'ala make each one of us and our families and our loved ones one of those who, when they ask from Allah Ta'ala alone. And if we don't see things happening the way we want them, we don't get discouraged. We keep our faith strong in Allah Ta'ala, and we just ask from Him alone. May Allah Ta'ala make us um, strong in our faith. آمين. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين.
Amen.
I'll
Amen.
stop.